As a high school English teacher, I've encountered my fair share of odd students, but nothing compared to the enigma that was Elijah. He was a quiet kid, always sitting in the back of the classroom, his presence almost ghostly. There was something unsettling about him, something that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. I couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't quite belong. What truly unsettled me was the lack of record or recognition of Elijah. He wasn't on any of the official class rosters, and whenever I brought him up in conversation, my colleagues would give me a puzzled look, insisting no such student existed. It was absurd. I saw him every day, his pale face staring blankly at me from the back of the room. Determined to unravel this mystery, I decided to follow Elijah after school one day. As the final bell rang, I watched him gather his things and head out the door, his movements eerily silent. I trailed a safe distance behind, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The streets were busy with students, but Elijah moved through them like a wraith, untouched and unnoticed. He led me through a labyrinth of alleys and back streets, the cityscape morphing into an area I scarcely recognized. The further we went, the more dilapidated the surroundings became, until we reached a decrepit neighborhood that time seemed to have forgotten. Elijah stopped in the front of an old abandoned building, its windows shattered and walls crumbling. He glanced around, as if sensing he was being followed, but I hid behind a rusted dumpster, holding my breath. Then, he entered the building through a broken doorway, disappearing into the shadows. My mind raced with possibilities. Was Elijah a ghost haunting these forgotten places? Or was he just a troubled kid seeking solace in isolation? The need for answers propelled me forward. I cautiously entered the building. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. The faint light that filtered through the broken windows cast eerie shadows on the walls. I followed the faint sound of footsteps to a second floor, where I found a room that took my breath away. It was a classroom, or at least it had once been. Desks were arranged in neat rows, their surfaces covered in dust. On the blackboard, faded words were still visible, a ghost of lessons long past. And there, sitting in one of the desks, was Elijah. He was writing in a notebook, his hand moving steadily across the page. But as I stepped closer, a chill ran down my spine. The room was cold, unnaturally so, and Elijah's figure seemed to flicker in the dim light, like a candle struggling to stay lit. "Elijah!" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty room. He looked up, and for the first time our eyes met. There was a depth to his gaze that was haunting, a sadness that spoke of untold stories and forgotten memories. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Elijah didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked towards the blackboard. He picked up a piece of chalk and began to write. As I watched, the words took shape, forming a message that made my heart stop. "I'm lost." The simplicity of the statement, the raw emotion behind it, struck me to the core. Elijah turned to face me, and in that moment, I understood. He wasn't just a student, he was a remnant of the past, a soul trapped in limbo, bound to this forsaken place. The realization was overwhelming, and I stepped back, my mind reeling. But as I did, Elijah began to fade, his form becoming more translucent, more ethereal. "Wait!" I cried out, reaching out to him, but it was too late. Elijah vanished before my eyes, leaving nothing but cold, empty air. I stood there, alone in an abandoned classroom, the weight of what I had witnessed pressed down on me. Elijah, the student who wasn't real, was a spirit anchored to this forgotten place, a reminder of a time long gone. As I left the building, the sun was setting, casting long shadows on the streets. I knew I would never see Elijah again, but his presence would forever linger in my mind, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that exist just beyond our understanding. From that day on, I never spoke of Elijah again, but every now and then, when the light fades and the world grows quiet, I can almost hear the faint sound of chalk on a blackboard. And I remembered the ghostly student who taught me more about mysteries of life and death than any living person ever could. Thank you for listening to The Wandering Student. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.